Night fell over the city of Neon Reach, a place where machines worked harder than humans. Silver towers touched the clouds, glowing with electric light. Flying cars whispered through the air, and people lived under the watch of endless security drones. Ethan Cross walked home with tired eyes, his son Leo holding his hand. Ethan was a single father. A man of few words, he worked as a mechanic, fixing robots and hoverbikes for a living. Life was not easy, but he smiled whenever Leo laughed. To him, his boy was the only thing worth living for. They walked through the narrow street near the Helix Corporation Tower. That building was famous. It touched the stars. It belonged to Marcus Vale, the richest and most powerful man in the city. Ethan never liked walking near it, he always said. That place smells like secrets, and Leo giggled every time. But tonight was not like any other night. As they passed the tower, the ground trembled. A loud explosion ripped through the air. The top floors burst into flames. Bright orange fire painted the dark sky. People screamed, alarms blared. Drones flew in panic trying to record everything. Ethan froze for a moment, then he heard a cry, a small, desperate voice calling for help. He looked up and saw a girl at one of the broken windows. Trapped by the flames, smoke rose behind her, glass melting around her small frame. The crowd below shouted, "Stay back! The building will collapse!" But Ethan didn't think twice. He handed Leo to a nearby woman. "Take care of him," he yelled and ran toward the burning tower. People tried to stop him, but he pushed forward. The fire burned hot enough to sting his skin inside. Everything was chaos. Robots malfunctioned, wires sparked, and walls crumbled. He covered his mouth with his jacket and climbed the emergency stairs. The heat was unbearable, but the thought of the little girl crying kept him going. He reached the upper hall, coughing. The flames roared like monsters. He kicked open a door and found the girl huddled under a table. Her eyes were full of tears, her hair covered in ash. "It's okay, I'm here to help," he shouted. She reached out her small hand, and he lifted her up, wrapping her in his jacket. The building groaned as if it were alive. Pieces of metal began falling from the ceiling. Ethan carried her through the smoke-filled corridor. The exit was blocked by fire. He spotted a broken window and a hanging cable outside. It was dangerous, but it was the only way out. He tied the girl with a safety strap and whispered, "Hold on tight." He climbed out, fire lighting up the city behind him. One wrong move and they would fall. But somehow, step by step, he made it down. When his feet touched the ground, people cheered. Medics rushed to him, taking the girl from his arms. Ethan collapsed on the sidewalk, coughing hard. Leo ran to him and hugged him tight. "You did it, Dad. You saved her." Ethan smiled weakly and looked at the girl. She stared at him with strange blue eyes like stars reflecting in water. She whispered softly, "Thank you for finding me." Moments later, police drones surrounded the area. Reporters shouted questions. "Who is he? What happened? Who's the girl?" Then someone said it. The girl was Aria Vale, the daughter of Marcus Vale. The crowd gasped. Cameras turned to Ethan, calling him a hero, but among the chaos, a man in a black suit stepped close. His eyes were cold, his voice even colder. He leaned near Ethan and whispered, "You weren't supposed to save her." Ethan froze. "What did you say?" But the man was already walking away, disappearing into the smoke. Ethan looked around, confused and breathless. The girl was being rushed into an ambulance. Leo tugged his hand. "Dad, what does he mean?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I don't know." As the fire continued to burn high above, Ethan watched the tower crumble in silence. He had no idea that saving one little girl had just changed the future of the entire world, and that somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes were already watching him, recording his every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. The night was far from over. It was only the beginning of something much larger, something that would test the limits of time, fate, and what it truly means to be human. The morning after the fire, the city looked peaceful again, but peace in Neon Reach was always fake. The streets were clean, the news screens showed smiles, and drones flew like birds of order. Yet behind all that perfection, danger hid quietly waiting. Ethan Cross sat by the window of his small apartment, a cup of cold coffee in his hand. Leo was still asleep on the couch, clutching the same locket Ethan's late wife had given him. Ethan's body ached from the burns and smoke, but his mind couldn't rest every time he closed his eyes. He saw that man in black whispering, "You weren't supposed to save her." He turned on the holoscreen. Every channel played his rescue on repeat. slow-motion clips of him carrying the girl through the flames. Reporters called him the mechanic hero, but the fame didn't make him proud. It made him uneasy. Too many eyes were on him now, and not all of them were kind. As he switched the screen off, the apartment lights flickered. The air turned cold for a second. Then words appeared on the wall display, glowing in red letters. You changed the timeline, prepare for correction. Ethan froze. What the hell? He whispered. He checked his comm device. No signal. No sender ID, nothing. It was as if the message came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Just then, someone knocked on the door hard. He opened it, and two men in gray uniforms stood there. Mr. Ethan Cross? Yes, he said carefully. They showed him digital badges. Security from Helix Corporation. The CEO would like to meet you. Today, one said. Ethan frowned. Marcus Vale? They nodded. He insists. He didn't like it. But refusing a man like Marcus Vale wasn't an option. So he left Leo with their neighbor and followed the guards into a black hover car. As the city lights blurred past the window, Ethan noticed more drones than usual, all scanning people's faces. Something about the air felt wrong. Too controlled, too watched. The car stopped at the Helix Tower, now half-burned, smoke still rising from its top floors. Inside, hundreds of workers rushed around trying to clean up the mess. They led Ethan into a private elevator. When the doors opened, he entered a silent room filled with blue light. Marcus Vale stood there, tall and calm, his sharp face lit by the glowing city behind him. Mr. Cross, Marcus said in a smooth voice, you saved my daughter. For that you have my gratitude, Ethan nodded. She's a brave kid. Marcus smiled faintly. Brave, yes, he said. But his eyes looked tired. There was sadness there and fear. Something that didn't belong to a man with so much power. Marcus offered him a seat. I wanted to thank you personally. But I also wanted to warn you, Ethan frowned. Warn me? Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. What you did last night, it wasn't supposed to happen. Ethan leaned forward. That's what someone else told me. Right after the fire. What does that mean? Marcus's jaw tightened. There are systems in place, Mr. Cross, systems that keep time. Balanced, Ethan blinked. Time? Are you saying I broke time by saving a child? Marcus looked down. Not broke. Shifted. Marcus sighed. You changed something that was meant to happen. And when that happens in Neon Reach, people notice. Dangerous people. Ethan stared at him, trying to understand. You're saying I should have let her die? Marcus looked him straight in the eye and said quietly, yes. The room went silent for a moment. Ethan thought he misheard. You're insane, he said, standing up. Marcus didn't stop him, only whispered, they'll come for you soon. When they do, run. Don't trust anyone with the Helix symbol. Before Ethan could ask more, the guards rushed in. Sir, we have to go. Unauthorized drones entering the tower. Marcus turned toward the window, his face pale. Go, Ethan, now. Ethan ran out of the room, down the hall, through smoke and alarms again. The building was in chaos once more outside. Black drones swarmed the sky like insects, scanning every person. He slipped into a narrow alley. Hiding between metal walls, his comm device buzzed. Another message appeared on the cracked screen. Correction in progress, remain still. He threw the device away in panic. His breath heavy, a shadow passed above, on a drone scanning with red light. It hovered right over him, then moved on. Ethan pressed against the wall, shaking. He looked at the glowing towers around him. Everyone else kept walking, smiling, unaware. But Ethan Cross now knew the truth. The city was being watched not just by men. It was being watched by something that could control time itself. And somewhere deep inside Helix Corporation, hidden beyond walls of code and light, someone whispered in the dark. The correction begins tonight. 3 nights had passed since the fire. Ethan Cross had stopped answering calls, stopped watching the news. He stayed inside his small apartment with the curtains closed, the message on his wall, "You changed the timeline," still haunted him. Every sound outside made him think of drones. Every flicker of light made him imagine someone watching. Leo didn't understand. "Dad, why don't we go out anymore?" he asked softly. Ethan forced a smile. "Just for a few days, buddy. I need to fix something first." He said that, but deep inside, he knew things were not normal anymore. That evening, as rain poured down the neon-lit windows, someone knocked on the door. soft but steady. Ethan froze, his hand going to the wrench he kept near the table. "Who is it?" he asked. No answer. He opened the door slowly, ready for trouble. But it wasn't a guard or a drone. It was the little girl he had saved. Aria Vale. Her hair was still bandaged, and her eyes glowed faintly blue under the light. "Aria," he whispered, shocked. "What are you doing here? It's not safe." She stepped inside quietly, looking around the small room with curiosity. "I had to find you," she said, her voice calm but strange. Ethan locked the door behind her. "Your father will be worried sick." Aria shook her head slowly. "He doesn't remember the fire." Ethan blinked. "What?" "He thinks I was at a safe house that night. He says there was no fire, no rescue. Nothing." Ethan stared at her, his heart racing. "What are you talking about? The whole city saw it." Aria looked down. "No, they didn't. It's gone. All the videos, all the news reports. Deleted." She turned to him, tears welling in her eyes. "But I remember it, Ethan. I remember you saving me. I remember the flames, your voice, everything." Ethan felt a chill run through his body. He quickly turned on the holoscreen. She was right. No footage of the fire existed anymore. The headlines that once called him a hero were replaced with other stories. It was as if the whole thing had never happened. He turned back to Aria. "How do you remember it then?" She hesitated. "Because I've seen it before." "Before?" "In another life," she said softly. Ethan frowned. "You're just a child. You can't." But then she interrupted. "I saw you die too." Silence filled the room. Her eyes turned distant, lost in something only she could see. "I saw the tower fall. I saw you inside holding me. But then everything went dark," she whispered. "And then I woke up again, in my bed, like time started over." Ethan felt goosebumps rise on his skin. "What you're saying makes no sense," he muttered, pacing the room. But deep down, he knew. After everything he'd seen, maybe it did. Aria walked toward Leo, who peeked from behind the couch. "You must be Leo," she said kindly. He nodded, shyly smiling. "You remember things too, don't you?" she asked him. Leo frowned. "Sometimes. I dream of fire. But Dad says it's nothing." Ethan's heart dropped. These weren't just dreams anymore. Something was wrong with time itself. Suddenly, the apartment lights flickered again. The air shimmered like heat waves. Objects on the table vibrated slightly. Aria grabbed her head, crying out in pain. "Make it stop! The memories! They're crashing!" Ethan rushed to her side, holding her shoulders. "What's happening?" She gasped. "Someone's trying to erase me again." The window shattered. A drone crashed through it, spinning sparks. It aimed a red beam directly at Aria, scanning her face. Ethan reacted fast, grabbing his tool gun and firing at it. The drone exploded, smoke filling the room. He lifted Aria in his arms and ran out the back door with Leo right behind him. They ran through the rain, down narrow alleys glowing with neon light. Aria's voice trembled. "They will." "And to reset me. Every time I die, time resets. That's why they said you weren't supposed to save me." Ethan's mind raced. "You mean someone controls this reset?" She nodded weakly. "Helix. They created it. My father built something that can change time, but only through me." They reached an abandoned subway tunnel and took shelter inside. Leo hugged his father tightly, scared but silent. Ethan sat beside Aria, trying to calm her. Her small hand shook as she whispered, "If I die again, everything we know will disappear. It's all connected to me." Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't understand how, but he knew one thing. This child was not ordinary. She wasn't just a victim. She was the key to something far greater. In the dark tunnel, water dripped from the ceiling. Ethan looked at his reflection in a broken mirror. The tired mechanic he once was, gone. In his place stood a man now tied to a secret that could destroy the world. As Arya fell asleep against his arm, she whispered one last thing. Ethan, next time the sky turns red, don't run. That's when the truth begins. He looked out into the city's glowing distance. Thunder rumbled, and for the first time, Ethan realized the real fire hadn't ended that night. It had only just begun. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. The sky over Neon Reach stayed dark and heavy, glowing with faint red lightning. Ethan Cross sat near a small fire in the old subway tunnel, his son Leo asleep beside him, across from him. Arya Vale watched the flames silently, her pale face lit by flickering light. Her blue eyes looked tired, too old for someone so young. Ethan broke the silence. You said Helix built something that controls time, right? Arya nodded slowly. It's called Project Rewind. Her voice trembled a little. My father told me it was meant to fix mistakes in the world, but they used me to power it. Ethan frowned. Power it? How? I don't know exactly, she said, but my brain, my memories, were linked to it. They said I was the anchor. When I die, it restarts time to the last pin. When they saved. She looked at her hands, shaking. They call it a reset, but it's not perfect. Some people remember things they shouldn't. That's why they erase the memories after each reset. Ethan leaned back against the tunnel wall, trying to take it all in. So, when I saved you, I broke their loop, he muttered. Arya nodded. You changed the story they wanted to keep repeating. Ethan rubbed his face, exhausted. And now they're trying to fix it. Yes, she whispered. By removing me, and anyone who remembers. Footsteps echoed down the tunnel. Ethan jumped up, grabbing his tool gun. A shadow moved toward them, then a familiar voice said, Easy, Ethan. It's me. From the darkness stepped Dr. Hannah Wells, a tall woman in a gray coat, holding a data tablet. Her hair was messy, her face marked by sleepless nights. Ethan's eyes widened. Hannah? I thought you left the city years ago. She smiled faintly. I tried, but Helix doesn't let people leave when they know too much. Arya looked at her nervously. You worked for my father. Hannah nodded. Yes, I did. I helped design the neural systems for Project Rewind. Ethan stepped forward. Then you can tell me how to stop it. Hannah sighed, setting her tablet down. It's not that simple. The machine isn't just in one place. It's built into the city itself. She pointed upward. Every drone, every power grid, every data link, all of it feeds the core under Helix Tower. That's where the time stabilizer sits. She paused, then said, And Arya, she's the final key. Arya's eyes filled with tears. He used me. Hannah nodded sadly. Yes, Marcus Vale used his own daughter as a living time anchor. Ethan clenched his fists. And he told me to let her die, so the system could restart without breaking. That's right, Hannah said softly. Her death keeps the loop clean. But you saving her? You made time bleed. That's why the city is unstable now. Suddenly the ground trembled. A loud hum filled the air, like machinery waking up beneath them. Hannah checked her tablet, her face turning pale. They've started another partial reset, she said. Reality's shifting again. Ethan looked around. The fire flickered blue for a second. Then the tunnel walls rippled like waves of water. Objects blinked in and out of sight. Broken signs, old posters, flashes of people who weren't there before. Leo woke up crying. Dad, the world's shaking. Ethan held him close. It's okay, I've got you. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he did. Hannah grabbed his arm. We need to move, now! They ran deeper into the tunnels, where old train cars lay rusting. Arya stumbled, clutching her head again. I can hear them, she whispered. Voices. Echoes from before. They stopped near a collapsed passageway. Hannah pulled out a small sphere and activated it, projecting a hologram of the city. She pointed to a glowing red mark under the Helix Tower. That's the control core. If we destroy it, we end the resets. Ethan looked at the map. How do we get in? She smirked. You don't, but I can. I still have access codes from my old lab. Arya shook her head. If you destroy it, everyone linked to it could die, including me. Ethan stared at her, his heart twisting. You mean if we stop it, you die for real? She nodded quietly. There won't be another version of me. No more resets. Just one timeline. Hannah placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You have to choose, Ethan. Keep her alive and let the city keep looping, or end it all. Ethan looked at Arya, then at Leo. His mind screamed with confusion and fear. Before he could answer, a drone screeched through the tunnel entrance, followed by 2 black-clad Helix soldiers. Go! Hannah shouted, pulling out an EMP grenade. She threw it, and the tunnel exploded with light. Ethan grabbed Leo and Arya, running through the collapsing passage. Behind them, sparks lit the darkness like stars falling into water. They burst out into the open night, rain hitting their faces. Far in the distance, the Helix tower flickered like a dying heartbeat. Hannah's voice echoed in the comm device she handed him before the blast. Find the hidden lab in Sector 9. It's the only place left that Helix doesn't control. Ethan stared at the tower, his mind burning with anger and purpose. He finally understood. Helix wasn't just a company. It was a god trying to rewrite time, and he had just become the man standing in its way. The city of Neon Reach never truly slept, but tonight it trembled. Lightning flashed across the sky like broken code. Buildings flickered, some appearing older, others new, as if time itself couldn't decide what year it was. Ethan Cross ran through the dark streets, his son Leo clutching his hand, and Arya following behind. Her small face glowed faintly blue again, the same strange light that came whenever the timeline shifted. They had escaped the collapsing tunnel, but now the city itself was chasing them. Every few minutes the streets changed shape, neon signs turned to old lamps, cars turned to rusty bikes. One moment it was the future, the next it was the past. Helix drones buzzed in the sky, their voices cold and robotic. Timeline correction in progress. Target, Arya Vale. Ethan pulled them into an old building, what used to be a cafe before time tore it apart. The smell of smoke and oil filled the air. Leo was shaking but trying not to cry. Ethan knelt beside him. Hey, stay close to me, okay? No matter what happens. Leo nodded, his little hands gripping his father's jacket. Arya stood near the window, staring at the city. It's worse than before, she whispered. The system is forcing the timeline to rewrite. Ethan frowned. Rewrite what? Everything, she said, turning toward him. Every moment that doesn't match Helix's perfect version. It's being deleted. Ethan clenched his jaw. Then we fall in Hannah's lab and stop this. Arya hesitated. What if stopping it erases us too? He looked her straight in the eyes. Then we go down fighting. Outside, the wind howled and shadows moved. Not people, but echoes of people. Ghostly versions of citizens from other timelines walking through walls, vanishing mid-step. Leo pointed. Dad. They look like memories. Ethan felt his heart tighten. That's exactly what they are. They didn't have long. Hannah's last message had said her hidden lab was in Sector 9. It was once the oldest part of the city, now covered in rubble and forgotten by Helix. They moved fast through the alleys, avoiding drones and collapsing streets. Halfway there, Arya suddenly stumbled, grabbing her head. Stop, she gasped. Someone's in my mind. Ethan held her steady. What do you mean? They're trying to use me, she said through clenched teeth. They're pulling me back into the system. Her eyes flickered like broken screens, blue light flashing in her pupils. For a moment, her voice wasn't hers. It was cold, metallic. Reset protocol. Initiated. Arya, Ethan shouted, shaking her shoulders. She blinked, breathing hard, her voice returning. I fought it off. Ethan exhaled in relief, but his worry grew. If Helix could control her mind remotely, they had less time than he thought. They reached the outer edge of Sector 9. Broken towers leaned over the flooded streets, rust covered every metal wall, and the air smelled like burnt electricity. Hannah's voice came through the comm device, crackling with static. Ethan, the timeline is collapsing faster than expected. You have to get to the core access before midnight. He looked at the broken city clock nearby. It showed 11:36 p.m. Where exactly is this lab? He asked. Under the old metro station, Hannah replied. There's a hatch marked with the Helix logo. Before she could finish, her voice cut off. Static filled the air, then silence. Arya looked up. 3 black drones appeared above them, beams of red light cutting through the air. "In! Run!" Ethan shouted, grabbing Leo and pulling Arya behind him. The drones opened fire, plasma shots hitting the street, exploding in blue flames. Ethan ducked behind a car, firing his tool gun. 1 drone went down, sparks flying, but the other 2 closed in fast. Arya screamed as 1 beam hit the ground beside her, throwing her back. Ethan grabbed her, his hands burning. "You okay?" She nodded weakly, her voice trembling. "They won't stop. Not until I'm gone." Suddenly, a huge explosion shook the ground. The lab hatch blew open on its own. A metal staircase led down, glowing faintly. "Go!" Ethan yelled, pushing Leo first. They ran down into the darkness, metal doors slamming shut behind them. Inside was a massive underground room, filled with screens, wires, and strange humming machines. Hannah's backup AI appeared on one of the screens, her face formed by lines of code. "Welcome, Ethan," the voice said. "You've reached the temporal core relay. You're standing in the heart of time control." Ethan looked around, speechless. On a raised platform stood a tall, glowing cylinder filled with swirling blue energy. Inside it, fragments of faces, people, and moments flashed in and out like dreams. Arya stepped closer, tears in her eyes. "That's me. That's every version of me they ever reset." Leo hid behind his father. "Dad, I don't like this place." Ethan put a hand on his shoulder. "Neither do I, kid." The AI spoke again. "If you destroy this machine, you end the resets. But all unstable timelines will collapse, including those connected to Arya." Ethan stared at the core. He didn't need science to understand what that meant. He would have to choose between saving time or saving her. But before he could answer, the metal floor trembled again. The drones had found them, cutting through the ceiling. Arya screamed, "They're here!" Ethan turned to the machine, determination burning in his eyes. "Then we finish this now," he said. He grabbed a heavy plasma wrench from the control panel. The time for running was over. The metal walls of the underground lab shook as explosions echoed above. Dust rained from the ceiling. Blue sparks flashed across the control panels. Helix drones were breaking through layer after layer of defense. Ethan Cross stood in front of the glowing core, the heart of Project Rewind. Its swirling energy reflected in his eyes, alive with storm and grief. Leo clung to his father's jacket, trembling. "Dad, are we gonna die?" he whispered. Ethan knelt, holding him close. "Not if I can help it." Behind them, Arya Vale stared at the machine that had stolen her life. Her voice was soft but shaking. "This is what they built me for. To keep time looping forever." The AI voice of Dr. Hannah spoke through the speakers. "Ethan, you must decide fast," it warned. "The core is destabilizing. If it overloads, it will erase every timeline that exists." Ethan looked at Arya. "If I destroy it, she dies, right?" "Yes," the AI answered. "She is the anchor. Her mind connects all versions of time together." Arya stepped closer, tears forming in her glowing blue eyes. "Ethan, you have to do it," she said, her voice breaking. "You have to end this." Ethan shook his head. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't," Hannah's voice replied. "Helix made sure of that." The roof cracked open with a violent roar. Drones poured in, red lights flashing like demon eyes. One of them projected a hologram. Marcus Vale, Arya's father. His calm face appeared in the smoke, eyes filled with sorrow. "Ethan," he said, his voice deep and cold. "I told you before, you weren't supposed to save her." Ethan glared up at him. "You used your own daughter as a tool." Marcus didn't deny it. "She was never supposed to live a normal life," he said quietly. "Her birth was the beginning of Project Rewind. Without her, the system collapses, and so does the world." Ethan shouted, "You call this a world? People live in. Is the same days over and over while you play God?" Marcus's voice trembled. "You don't understand. I've seen what happens when the loop breaks. The entire city burns." Ethan pointed at Arya. "Then why does she remember everything? Why is she suffering if your perfect system works?" Marcus paused, his face flickering with guilt. Because love doesn't reset, he whispered. It stays, even when time restarts. That's why she remembers you. For a second, the entire room went silent. Even the drones hesitated, their red lights dimming as if time itself had stopped listening. Arya stepped forward, looking at the hologram of her father. Then let me go, Dad, she said, her voice trembling. If love stays, let it stay without the loop. Marcus looked down, his jaw tightening. You don't understand what you're asking for. I do, she said softly. You built this machine because you couldn't accept loss. But sometimes we have to let go. The drones suddenly reactivated, surrounding Ethan and Arya. Marcus shouted, Stop them! Don't let the core be destroyed! Ethan grabbed a plasma rifle from the floor, firing at the drones. Sparks and fire filled the room. He shouted over the noise, Arya, run! But Arya didn't move. Instead, she walked straight to the glowing core, her small hands pressed against the glass. The machine pulsed brighter, reacting to her touch. Ethan, she said, smiling faintly, tell Leo to remember the stars. Arya, wait! Ethan ran toward her. She turned her head, her blue eyes full of calm and light. It's okay. This time I choose it. The entire lab blazed with blinding blue light. Marcus's hologram screamed, No! Stop! But his voice faded into static. The core's energy flared like a supernova, and everything froze. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as time itself stood still. He looked at Arya one last time, her body shimmered like glass breaking into light. Then she was gone. The core shattered, sending a wave of white fire through the room. When Ethan opened his eyes, everything was quiet. The machines were dead, the air was still, the drones had fallen to the floor, lifeless. He stood up slowly, coughing. Leo lay beside him, safe but unconscious, and above them the ceiling had vanished, revealing a calm, golden sky. The AI's voice returned, weak but clear. Ethan, it's over. The loop is gone. He looked around the ruined lab. Where's Arya? He asked, his voice breaking. There was silence. Then Hannah's voice whispered faintly, She's everywhere now, in every second that still exists. Ethan knelt, holding Leo close, tears mixed with the dust on his face. He whispered, You did it, Arya. You set us free. Outside, the city of Neon Reach glowed softly. No flickering, no resets, no distortion. Just one steady moment in time. For the first time in years, it was truly real. But somewhere, deep in the static of the broken machine, a faint blue light pulsed once more, and a small voice whispered through the hum of silence. Thank you for saving me, Ethan. Ethan looked toward the sound, smiled faintly. He whispered back, You saved us all. Morning came quietly over Neon Reach. The sky glowed gold and pink, the city breathing for the first time in peace. No drones buzzed above the towers, no sirens, no glitches, just the sound of wind, and the world finally standing still. Ethan Cross stood at the edge of a rooftop, watching the sunrise. The air smelled clean, different, new. For the first time in years, time felt real. He didn't know how long he'd been unconscious after the explosion in the Helix lab. When he woke, everything was calm. The machines were gone. The drones were gone. And so was Arya. Leo sat beside him, holding a cup of warm milk. He looked up at his father and said softly, Is it really over? Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, kid, it's over. But his voice carried a weight that Leo didn't understand. Ethan's eyes still searched the sky. As if looking for someone who wasn't there, they had lost many things, but gained something far greater. Freedom. The endless loops were gone, the people no longer repeating days without memory. Across the city, life was beginning again, for real this time. Ethan and Leo walked through the streets later that morning. People smiled, laughed, hugged strangers. It was as if everyone had woken from the same long dream. No one remembered the resets or the burning tower, but Ethan did, and somewhere deep inside him, he knew. Arya had made sure he would. When they passed the old Helix tower, it was now silent and broken. Just ruins, covered in sunlight. Ethan stopped, staring at the collapsed metal. He could still feel her presence, faint but real. Leo tugged his sleeve. "Dad, why do you look sad?" Ethan smiled weakly. "Because sometimes saving the world costs too much." Later that evening, they visited Hannah, who had survived the destruction of the lab. Her left arm was in a sling, her face tired but kind. She poured Ethan a cup of tea and said, "She did it, Ethan. The time grid is gone. The city's data flow is clean. No more loops. No more resets." Ethan nodded, staring into his cup. "I know." Hannah looked at him carefully. "You miss her." He sighed. "Every second." She smiled softly. "She's not really gone, you know." He looked up, confused. Hannah pointed to the window. "The city's energy readings show something strange. Every time someone laughs, every time the wind moves through the neon lines, her pattern flickers in the background, like she became part of time itself." Ethan smiled faintly, his voice breaking. "That sounds like her." "She saved everyone," Hannah said. "But she saved you most of all." That night, Ethan took Leo to the park, the same one where his wife used to bring them before she passed. The grass glowed faintly under soft blue lights. Leo ran Aid laughing, chasing a firefly drone that someone had reprogrammed as a toy. Ethan sat on a bench, watching him play, his heart full of both peace and pain. Then something shimmered beside him, a flicker of blue light. Faint but steady, he turned his head slowly. For a moment he saw her. Aria Vale, standing under a tree, smiling. She looked calm, her dress glowing like starlight, her eyes soft and kind. Ethan stood, his breath caught in his chest. "Aria," he whispered. She tilted her head, her voice like wind through glass. "You kept your promise." He took a step closer. "You're real?" She smiled faintly. "Not in the way you remember, but enough." He tried to speak, but his voice broke. "I'm sorry. You shouldn't have had to." She interrupted gently. "Don't be. You gave me something no one ever did before." He frowned softly. "What's that?" "Choice," she said, her eyes bright with tears of light. Behind them Leo laughed again, his voice echoing through the quiet night. Aria smiled. "Take care of him, Ethan. He's the future now." Ethan nodded, tears rolling down his face. "Will I ever see you again?" he asked. She looked up at the sky, where the stars began to glow. "Every time the world moves forward," she said, "I'll be there." Her light faded slowly, the wind grew calm, and as she vanished, a faint whisper lingered in the air. "Even if time forgets me, I'll never forget you." Ethan stood there, silent. He looked up at the stars, and for the first time in a long time, smiled. Leo ran back to him. "Dad, look, a shooting star." Ethan put an arm around his son. "Yeah," he said softly. "She's saying goodnight." They sat together, watching the sky as it shimmered with peace. No resets, no glitches. Just one true, perfect moment in time, and somewhere far beyond, in the quiet pulse of the universe, a girl made of light whispered softly through eternity, "Thank you for saving me, and thank you for letting me go."